Hey everybody, in today's video we're going to go over how to use motion capture data and apply that to an Apex rig, such as this guy. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm starting off on a relatively fresh scene here. So I just have a knight. I have this knight here. And I just saved this out as a BGO, right? That's one of the really cool things you can do here. You can just save out your entire rig, geo, all the Apex solvers and everything, and just save it out as a BGO right here. So I'm just pulling that in from disk, and then you just drop down a scene animate, and you're basically ready to go. So essentially, the first thing you need to do before you want to take your motion capture data, let's just look at the motion capture data really quick. So it's this, right? This kind of capoeira guy. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But so yeah, I just got this from Mixamo. You can get your mocap data from anywhere. But keep in mind that the naming of the joints is going to change depending on where you get your mocap data from. So you might have to do a couple other things to fix your setups to keep them nice and procedural. But in this case, we're just going to do it for Mixamo. And the nice thing again about this is that it's procedural. So any mocap data that you pull from Mixamo, you just need to set this up once, and then you'll be good to go for any other animation that you decide to use. So to get started, we're going to throw down where is it? A scene add character. This is going to go into the blue slot, and I'm going to do my renaming up here. All right, I'm just going to call this Knight. And when you add your character, make sure to name it properly, because then, you know, if you try to change your name later, when you start adding all these other characters to your Apex scene, things could get kind of screwed up. So when you put it into your scene add character, name it ASAP. Okay, so now that we have this added, what we need to do is we're going to do an Apex control extract. And what this does is it actually allows you to go through and grab the different controls that are within our night rig, in this case our night rig, and extract those as pieces of geometry or as points. So we want to extract from a folder. We're going to grab it from our night character base rig. Now if I go here, we see that this is our rig. This is our Apex rig, right? Represented as points. Why don't I open up my geometry spreadsheet so we can kind of see what we're doing here. So yeah, this is our Apex rig represented as joints. So when you throw down one of these control extractions, it has this little expression in here. You know, percentage sign, callback, transform. What that's doing is it's grabbing everything that exists in your rig, right? All the FK, the IK, everything, which is nice if you want to go that route. But we're going to do this piece by piece. Okay. So first thing we need to do is throw down a rig match pose. So with our rig match pose, this is going to be a little, we're going to do this a little differently here because this animation comes in like this. So, oh, actually, you know what? I'm doing this wrong. I'm putting in the geometry. So let's get rid of this for now. And we'll pull this in. And now the issue we're going to run into is this. Now, you know, this is pretty difficult to deal with because we're on our first frame of the animation. And the first frame of the animation is you know, this, right? He's jumping around all over the place. So that would mean that we would have to try to match up the pose as best as we can, right? But we don't need to do that because along with this FBX, we also have a rest pose, right? So we're going to use the rest pose in this case. So let's name these. So this is going to be Anim. It's going to be rest. The way we're going to extract this rest pose is by using a rig stash pose. Okay, so we're going to go, this is the skeleton we want. I think this is how to do it. Let me see. Okay, cool. So now if I plug this into here, right, I need to reset this. So let's go and we'll do revert to factory defaults. And there we go. So now we have our, let's flip these this way. So we have our rest going into here to the pose source, the anim, the animated skeleton going into the skeleton. That's going into this rig match pose. Okay. So now we need to throw down a map points. Okay. So I'm going to move the target out a bit in the Z. All right. And so we have all of these controls in here from our Apex rig, right? So this is our Apex rig, and this is the Mixamo skeleton. And if you've seen some other motion retargeting tutorials on this, it's kind of the exact same procedure. The only difference is well, there's a couple other things, but we need to choose which controls we want to extract. And I like doing this bit by bit instead of just using everything, because it just is a little bit easier. So I think the easiest way I found to do this is to put down an auto rig component, right? So we can see our rig. I'm not going to use a scene animate. I'm just going to use an auto rig component. And I'm going to grab our control extract and just pin this, okay? And then just kind of hover over the controls that I want. So this is going to be the IK target. So since I still have this, right, because I pinned it. Oop. Let's try that again. That is strange. There we go. Okay, let's pin that again. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to write star IK target. Okay, so that's going to grab all the IK targets, right? It's going to grab the hands and it's going to grab the feet as well. But in this case, we want the foot ankle. Okay, so we're going to go, let me see, star ankle. So then we're going to get the actual IKs from the foot, right? Because there's two IKs on here, right? If I hover over, you might see that there's a IK target and then the IK foot ankle, or the L foot ankle. So the one I want is the L foot ankle, right? That's the actual control that we use here. It's just that in this rig, the IK target is also exposed, but that's being driven by the ankle. So we don't want that. So now that we have these, let's just start with the bare minimum, right? And see what we get. Okay. So all we need to do is just grab our left hand, put that there, right hand, put that there. And this is going to look really bad. I'm just letting you know. This is going to go into the ankle, right? Because that's the one we want to drive. And now let's put this into a full body IK. All right, cool. So the next step is we want to put down a scene invoke. And this is when it gets a little tricky. Because it's a little weird what we have to do here, but just bear with me. So we have to put down a scene invoke, pass our scene into it. Let's unpin this and make sure that we're outputting all the character shapes. We want to take this, what is this? This is the control constraint graph, and plug this into the control update parameters, and then plug that into here in the control skeleton. Okay, so now we got this moving around. And then this is going to go into the scene invoke. Okay, let's output all character shapes. And the animation target is going to be the base rig. Okay, cool. So our character's moving around. Obviously, it looks really bad. But we've made that connection, right? We've connected A to B. So let's put down another Apex scene animate. Okay. What am I doing wrong here? Right, yeah, there's a few more steps in order to do that, because we actually have to add the animation. So why don't we set that up first, and then we'll go in and refine everything. So if we want to actually add the animation to the rig, we have to turn this into a motion clip. And what was it? Yeah, I'm looking. I have some notes here. I'm cheating because it's like I haven't got this process down to memory yet. So channel primitives from motion clip, and this needs to go into the second slot, not the first. Okay, let's add the animation. This is the second input. This goes into here. And now let's put this into an animate. And the last thing we need to do here is choose the actual rig. Okay. Let's see. So let's reset. And there we go. So our Apex rig is now being driven by this animation. And we can go ahead and get started, you know, adding all sorts of bells and whistles and stuff. And if I click on one of the controls, you see that all the keyframes are in there, which is super duper. But this looks terrible. So let's keep on, you know, pulling things out, and let's keep on refining this. So the next most important, here, let's do this again. Let's pin this. And the next most important control that we're going to want is either the cog or the root control. I'm going to grab both of them. Okay, so I'm going to say cog and then root underscore CTRL. Is that? Yeah. All right. So we're going to jump to match points. Oops. All right, let's zoom back out. And now we have our cog and our root control. And let's put that into the root. And let's see how this is looking. So what's cool is that you can actually just click on the scene invoke to see how everything is updating. So it's looking a little bit better. It still looks kind of funky. Let's put in the cog as well, just to see if that doesn't help at all. Yeah, it gives it like a bit of rotation. Okay, now we're starting to look a little bit better. Very cool. And again, one thing we can do is we can take this FBX character import and, you know, kind of put it down to the side. Okay, let's move this over, put down a transform, and I'm just going to put this over so that we can kind of compare the two, right, and see, you know, what's going on. So there's a lot of stuff going on. And one thing I've noticed that with the when you're doing this process, it's better to turn off enable match bounds, because what that does is it scales the target skeleton with the source skeleton, and you know, you see how the target is scaling to the source right there, and that typically causes issues. So you don't really need that. Okay, so we have an issue with the pole vectors. Let's see. I mean, maybe you do need it. I don't know. Like, I think it kind of depends on your process. So let's grab all the pole vecs. So we're going to say star pole vec. All right. So now we have our pole vectors. And in order to fix this kind of weird knee issue, there's a couple of things that we can do. So what's great about this is if I throw down a rig pose right here before we plug this into our control update parameters, I can actually go in and grab these joints and move them around. And what's really cool about this is that we're actually still using the Apex rig solver. So you can make all these great global fixes to your animation, and just kind of refine the placement of everything, keep it procedural, right, which is super cool. And then you do all that before you plug this into your scene animate. So now if I reset everything, you get this. So let's go back and let's get rid of this. I'm just going to delete that. And to fix this pole vector problem, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put down a parent joints, and I'm actually going to parent the pole vector to our foot IK. See, so now that's working much better. Boom. Fixes the knees. Arms are still looking a little funky. So let's do a couple more things here. Let's fix the initial position of our character, because if we look at our knight as he comes in, you see that he's in an A pose, and our FBX character import is in a T pose. So if we go to this rig match pose and we put these arms down to more or less the same angle as our knight in A pose, we see that we can much better or kind of fix that issue, right? So now the knight is looking much better. All right, so the next important thing that we're going to need here is the clavicle, okay? So that's going to be clavicle star, because we're going to need both of them. Let's go to the map points, and we'll map those 1 and 2. Okay, so now we have the clavicles in place. Still looks a little funky because now the clavicles are moving outwards, but we don't have any motion on the spine, right? We don't have any motion on the top of the spine. So now let's map all the points of the spine. So that's going to be, so we're going to do star CV CTRL and CTRL and tip CTRL. Okay. So let's go here. So we're going to go star CTRL and tip CTRL, and that's going to grab all of those. Okay, let's go to rig match points, and let's go ahead and just map these. Okay, cool. Let's go to scene invoke. Okay, that's looking kind of weird, but it's looking a little bit better. It's almost there. One thing you'll want to do when it's really important to when you can extract all your controls to kind of like recreate the parent setup, right? So in my rig here, the clavicles are parented to this tip control, right? So you want to recreate that to get a similar setup. So when you extract all your controls, so I'm gonna just parent these back together, and you see that the clavicles snap back into place where they're supposed to be. And now we're getting pretty close. It's almost there. He's kind of looking down a little too much. So now let's grab the neck and the head. So that's what, neck 1. Okay, so we're gonna go neck 1 and head. Boom, boom. And again, let's reproduce our parenting. Let's go to map points, and we're gonna get, let me see, neck and head. So we're gonna go neck and head. Scene invoke. Cool, look at that. Boom. Check that out. He's looking pretty slick. And if I compare the two, it's funny, it kind of looks like a little dance off. So yeah, that's looking pretty good. So if I really wanted to, like for instance, I can see that that arm is a little bit lower. Here, let's template it this way. I can see that that arm comes down lower, or rather the elbow. So with this guy templated over here, and with our knight activated, the scene invoke, right, activated over here, I can select my rig pose. Oops, not. I want to hit enter over the viewport. And now I can go in and kind of adjust things a little bit, right? To just kind of, get my, just kind of get the placement of everything just a little bit better. And of course you can go in and keyframe these, which I would suggest. I would suggest doing like your fixes, right? Your main fixes within the rig pose here, because if you're doing all that within your rig pose, you keep everything procedural, right? once you go down into the scene animate, if you want to get your changes again, you got to reset everything. So if you get most of your fixes within the rig pose, it's a good idea to do that, because then you keep everything procedural. And then if you need to layer things on top, once you're done with the rig pose and you need to layer things on top, then you come down to the scene animate. So we'll talk about that in just a sec. So yeah, here you go. I mean, you can even make the argument that it's a good idea to just do everything within the rig pose. But you know, this is Apex. We're messing around with that. So let's figure out exactly how to do this. So this looks much better. Cool. All right. And that's only with, you know, just mapping a few of these points. And you can go into the full body IK, and you know, you can change some of these attributes. But you know, I think it really, the way I've found that that actually looks pretty good right there. Let me see. Yeah, I found that the main setup, just the basic setup, typically looks the best. But in this case, this one actually might look better. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I like how it's a little bit more dynamic, but whatever, we'll just leave it this way. Okay. So now everything is added to our scene animate. I'm going to reset everything to make sure that it's all set. And yeah, let's go ahead and start adding some layers. Okay. So let's say that like we really like this animation. We can get rid of this guy. And now it's just the simple act of just layering things on top of this. Here, let me get that like this. There we go. All right, I'm going to open up the, where is it? Animation layers. Cool. And again, you know, there's a ton of things you can do here. Let's say we want to kind of clean up some of this motion, right? I can take this, and these are all of my, well, let's actually do it here because this is actually connected to that. You know, I can go in and clean this up, right? By going into, where is it? I think it's all the way to the side over here. I can go into and reduce the sampling, right? Just to kind of clean up that motion capture data. Be careful with that because now it looks a little janky. So one thing you can do instead of doing that is, you know, I can go in and grab my IK, for instance, and then put that into a layer. So I'm going to call that arm IK. Now the thing about this is that when you make your new layer, automatically it's set to what's called override. And that's overriding everything that's below it. So what you want is you want to put this to additive. And now you can go in and make some additions. Right? So I can push the arms out a little bit further, right? Like that. I can see how that's looking, right? Turn off, turn on. And of course, you know, I can even, you know, I can go through and keyframe everything, right? So this is looking pretty good. Yeah, something like that. So cool. That's essentially how you set this up. And there's a bit more that you can do, but this is the basic process. And, you know, again, this is Apex. This is more or less procedural, right? Until you get to the scene animate. So make sure that you do everything within your rig pose, and then you get to your scene animate, and then you can really add and refine things using your Apex rig and everything that's fantastic that comes along with that. So yeah, that's about it. If you got any questions, of course, put them in the comments. I'll do my best to get back to them. And yeah, thanks for watching.